Mother Bear rode in an ambulance. Beside a feverish infant, what happened next was shocking. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help us to remain in touch with amazing people like you. The autumn rain hammered against the windows of the small cabin as Maya Chen held her 8-month-old daughter closer to her chest. Little Aria's breathing was getting worse by the minute. Her tiny body burned with fever, and her usually bright eyes had turned glassy and distant. Maya's hands shook as she felt her daughter's forehead again. The temperature was climbing dangerously high. "David, she's not getting better," Maya whispered to her husband, who was pacing frantically across their living room. "Her fever won't break, and look at how she's breathing. Something's really wrong." David stopped pacing and looked at his wife. The worry lines on his face had deepened over the past hour. They lived 40 miles from the nearest hospital, deep in the Montana wilderness where David worked as a wildlife photographer. Usually, the isolation brought them peace. Tonight, it felt like a trap. "I'm calling 911, David said, grabbing his phone. His voice cracked with emotion. "We can't wait any longer." As David spoke urgently to the emergency dispatcher, Maya rocked Aria gently. The baby's breathing had become shallow and rapid. Her little chest rose and fell in quick, desperate movements that made Maya's heart pound with fear. This wasn't just a normal fever. Something was terribly wrong with their precious daughter. Outside, the storm grew stronger. The wind howled through the tall pine trees that surrounded their cabin. Maya could hear branches scraping against the roof, and the rain sounded like thousands of tiny hammers beating down on them. The weather would make it harder for the ambulance to reach them quickly. "They're coming," David said, ending the call. "But it'll take at least 20 minutes because of the storm and the distance." 20 minutes felt like forever when your child was struggling to breathe. Maya pressed her lips to Aria's burning forehead and whispered soft words of comfort. The baby's eyes fluttered, but she seemed too weak to cry properly. Only small, heartbreaking whimpers escaped her lips. David sat beside his wife on the couch and gently touched his daughter's tiny hand. "She's going to be okay," he said, but his voice betrayed his own fear. "The paramedics will know what to do." Maya nodded, but inside, panic was growing. She had read about babies who got sick this fast. Sometimes they didn't make it to the hospital in time. The thought made her stomach twist with terror. She couldn't lose Aria, not their miracle baby who had taken them 5 years to conceive. The cabin felt smaller with each passing minute. The walls seemed to press in around them as they waited for help to arrive. Maya found herself listening for the sound of sirens over the storm, but all she could hear was the relentless rain and wind. Their daughter's labored breathing filled the spaces between the sounds of the storm. David got up and looked out the window into the darkness. "I think I see lights," he said suddenly. "Yes, there are headlights coming up the mountain road." Relief flooded through Maya, but it was mixed with new anxiety. Getting to the hospital was just the first step. What if they were too late? What if Aria's condition was more serious than they thought? The questions swirled in her mind as she held her daughter tighter. The paramedics would be there soon, but Maya couldn't shake the feeling that this night would change everything. Something in the air felt different, charged with more than just the storm. It was as if the wilderness itself was holding its breath, waiting for something unexpected to happen. Outside in the darkness, unseen by the worried parents, a large shape moved through the trees near their cabin. The storm masked the sound of heavy paws on wet leaves, and the rain washed away any scent that might have warned of an approaching visitor. Something was watching their home, drawn by instincts that ran deeper than human understanding. Maya felt a strange chill that had nothing to do with the cold rain outside. She pulled the blanket tighter around Arya and whispered another prayer for her daughter's safety. The ambulance lights were getting closer, but so was something else that would turn this desperate night into something no one could have ever imagined. The red and blue lights of the ambulance finally cut through the darkness, casting eerie shadows across the wet trees. Maya heard the vehicle's engine struggling against the muddy mountain road, but the sound was like music to her ears. Help was finally here. David rushed to the door as two paramedics hurried up their front steps, their equipment bags heavy in their hands. The lead paramedic was a woman with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. Her partner was younger, a tall man with steady hands and a calm demeanor that immediately put Maya at ease. "I'm Sarah," the female paramedic said as she quickly moved toward Maya and Arya. "This is my partner Jake. Tell me what's been happening with your daughter." Maya's words came out in a rush. She started getting a fever this afternoon, but it just kept getting worse. She's burning up, and her breathing is so fast and shallow. She won't eat anything, and she's barely responding to us anymore. Sarah immediately began examining Arya while Jake set up their equipment. The baby barely stirred as Sarah checked her temperature and breathing. The thermometer reading made Sarah's expression grow more serious. "Her temperature is 104.2, Sarah said quietly to Jake. "We need to get her to the hospital right away. This could be sepsis or meningitis." The words hit Maya like a physical blow. Sepsis, meningitis. These were the diseases that could kill babies within hours. Her legs felt weak, and she had to sit down heavily on the couch. "Is she going to be okay?" David asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "We're going to do everything we can," Jake said as he prepared an IV line. "The good news is that she's still responsive, and her heart rate is strong. We caught this early enough." As the paramedics worked to stabilize Arya, Maya noticed something strange. The rain had suddenly stopped, and an unusual quiet had settled over the forest. Even the wind had died down, leaving an eerie stillness that made her skin crawl. "That's weird," Jake muttered, glancing toward the window. The storm was supposed to last all night. Sarah was focused on Arya, but Maya saw her pause for just a moment. "Do you hear that?" Sarah asked quietly. They all listened carefully. In the distance, there was a sound that didn't belong to the night. It was low and rhythmic, almost like heavy breathing, but much too deep to be human. The sound seemed to be coming from multiple directions, as if they were surrounded. "Probably just the wind in the trees," David said, but his voice lacked conviction. Jake stepped outside to prepare the stretcher, but he came back in quickly, his face pale. Sarah, we might have a problem." "What kind of problem?" Sarah asked, not looking up from her patient. "There are eyes reflecting our headlights. Big eyes, and I think I saw something moving in the tree line." Maya's heart started racing for a new reason. They lived in bear country, and this was the time of year when bears were preparing for winter. A hungry or protective bear could be extremely dangerous, especially if it felt cornered or threatened. "We need to get to the ambulance quickly," Sarah said, her training taking over. "Jake, radio for wildlife control backup, but don't wait for them. This baby needs to get to the hospital now." As they prepared to move Arya, Maya heard the sound again. This time it was closer, and there was no mistaking what it was. Something large was walking around their cabin, circling them slowly and deliberately. David grabbed a flashlight and shined it out the window. The beam caught something that made him gasp. Two golden eyes stared back at him from the darkness, unblinking and intelligent. But what shocked him most was that the eyes weren't moving away from the light. Instead, they seemed to be studying him. "There's definitely a bear out there," David whispered. "A big one." Sarah made a decision. "We're going to move fast and stay together. Maya, you carry the baby. David, you stay close to us. Jake, keep the radio ready in case we need to call for help." They opened the door carefully, and Jake shined his flashlight into the darkness as they moved toward the ambulance. The vehicle was only 30 feet away, but it felt like a mile. With each step, Maya could feel something watching them from the shadows. Halfway to the ambulance, Jake's flashlight beam caught movement in the trees. A massive brown bear stepped into the circle of light, and Maya's breath caught in her throat. The bear was enormous, easily 7 feet tall when standing on its hind legs. But what made Maya's blood run cold was that the bear wasn't alone. 2 smaller bears emerged from behind the larger one. Not cubs, but adolescent bears, probably the offspring of the large female. The family group stood perfectly still, watching the humans with an intensity that was both terrifying and strangely fascinating. "Nobody move," Sarah whispered. "Bears usually avoid humans, but a mother with older cubs can be unpredictable." The mother bear took a step forward, and Maya instinctively clutched Arya closer to her chest. But something strange happened. As soon as the bear saw the baby, her entire demeanor changed. The aggressive posture softened, and her head tilted slightly, as if she was trying to understand what she was seeing. "This is really unusual behavior," Jake muttered. "It's like she's curious about the baby, not threatened by us." The mother bear took another step closer, and Maya could see her clearly now. She was beautiful and powerful, with thick brown fur that glistened in the ambulance lights. Her eyes were incredibly intelligent, and they were focused entirely on Arya. Then something happened that none of them would ever forget. The mother bear made a sound that wasn't a growl or a roar. It was softer, almost like a whimper, and it was full of what could only be described as concern. "I've never seen anything like this," Sarah said quietly. "It's like she knows the baby is sick." The bear's 2 offspring moved closer to their mother, but they too seemed more curious than aggressive. They kept looking between the humans and the tiny bundle in Maya's arms, as if they were trying to understand what was happening. Maya felt a strange connection to the mother bear. Here was another mother, another parent who understood the fierce protectiveness that came with caring for young ones. The bear's eyes met Maya's, and for a moment there was a communication that went beyond words or species. "We need to keep moving," Jake said urgently. "The baby's condition is getting worse." As if she understood, the mother bear stepped aside, creating a clear path to the ambulance. Her cubs followed her lead, moving back into the shadows but still watching everything with intense interest. They reached the ambulance safely, and Sarah immediately began hooking Arya up to monitors inside the vehicle. The baby's vital signs were displayed on screens, and Maya could see that her daughter's condition was indeed getting worse. "Let's go," Sarah called to Jake, who was starting the engine. But as Jake put the ambulance in gear, something unexpected happened. The mother bear approached the vehicle again, this time coming right up to the open rear doors. She stood there, looking directly at Arya, and made that same soft, concerned sound. "What does she want?" Maya asked, her voice shaking. The bear looked at Maya with those intelligent golden eyes, then back at Arya. Then, in a move that defied all logic and everything they knew about wild animals, the mother bear climbed into the ambulance. "Oh my God," Jake breathed. "This is not happening." The bear was too large to fit completely inside, but she managed to get her head and front paws into the vehicle. She positioned herself so that she could see Arya clearly, and then she settled down as if she belonged there. "Should we try to scare her away?" David asked, his voice tight with fear and confusion. "I don't think she means any harm," Sarah said slowly. "Look at her body language. She's not aggressive at all. If anything, she seems protective." The mother bear's breathing had synchronized with the rhythm of the ambulance's monitors. She watched Arya intently, and whenever the baby made a small sound, the bear would respond with a gentle rumble that seemed to calm the infant. "This is insane," Jake said, but he started driving anyway. "I'm driving to the hospital with the bear in my ambulance." Maya found herself staring at the bear in amazement. The animal's presence was somehow comforting rather than threatening. It was as if the mother bear understood that Arya was in danger and wanted to help in whatever way she could. As they drove through the dark mountain roads, the bear never took her eyes off the baby. Her two cubs had followed the ambulance and were running alongside it, keeping pace with the vehicle as it wound its way toward the hospital. "The cubs are following us," David reported, looking out the rear window. "They're actually keeping up with the ambulance." The scene was surreal. Here they were, racing through the night to save their daughter's life, accompanied by a family of wild bears who seemed to have appointed themselves as guardians. Maya couldn't understand it, but she found herself grateful for their presence. Arya's breathing became more labored, and the monitors began beeping more urgently. Sarah worked quickly to adjust the baby's treatment, but Maya could see the worry in the paramedic's eyes. "Come on, little one," Sarah whispered. "Stay with us." The mother bear seemed to sense the increasing urgency. She moved closer to Arya and made a low, rumbling sound that was almost like a lullaby. To everyone's amazement, Arya's breathing seemed to stabilize slightly, and the frantic beeping of the monitors slowed. "Did you see that?" David asked in wonder. The baby responded to the bear. Maya reached out tentatively and touched the bear's massive paw. The fur was incredibly soft, and she could feel the warmth and strength of the animal. The bear looked at her with those wise golden eyes, and Maya felt a connection that transcended species. "Thank you," Maya whispered to the bear. "Whatever you're doing, thank you." The bear's response was a gentle nuzzle against Maya's hand, so careful and controlled that it was clear the animal understood how fragile humans could be. This was not the behavior of a wild predator. This was the behavior of a mother who recognized another mother in distress. As they crested the hill that led down into the valley where the hospital was located, Maya saw the lights of the town spread out below them. Help was getting closer, but she realized that the most important help might already be sitting right beside them in the form of a 7-foot-tall brown bear who had decided to become their guardian angel. The hospital's emergency entrance came into view, and Jake radioed ahead to warn them about their unusual passenger. The response from the hospital dispatcher was a long silence, followed by a confused request to repeat the message. "This is Ambulance 47, Jake said again, his voice steady despite the surreal situation. "We have a critical infant patient with possible sepsis, and we also have a bear in the ambulance. A friendly bear. I know how that sounds, but I need security and animal control standing by." The mother bear seemed to understand that they were approaching their destination. She lifted her massive head and looked out at the hospital lights, then back at Arya. Her golden eyes were filled with what could only be described as worry. "She knows we're almost there," Maya whispered in amazement. "Look at her. She's actually concerned about whether the baby will be okay." As they pulled into the hospital's emergency bay, Maya could see a crowd of medical staff waiting for them. Doctors, nurses, security guards, and what looked like animal control officers were all standing at a safe distance, clearly unsure of what to expect. The ambulance doors opened, and the first person Maya saw was Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the hospital's chief pediatrician. She was a small woman with silver hair and kind eyes that had seen everything in her 30 years of practice. But even she stopped short when she saw the enormous bear gently watching over the sick infant. "In all my years," Dr. Rodriguez murmured, "I have never seen anything like this." The mother bear made no move to exit the ambulance aggressively. Instead, she carefully backed out, allowing the medical team access to Arya. But she didn't go far. She positioned herself just outside the ambulance doors, her cubs flanking her on either side, all three of them watching intently as the doctors took over Arya's care. "Temperature is 104.8 and climbing," Sarah reported as they transferred Arya to a hospital gurney. "Possible sepsis or meningitis. She's been declining rapidly over the past hour." Dr. Rodriguez began her examination immediately, but Maya noticed something strange. Every time Arya's condition seemed to worsen, the mother bear would make a soft sound, and the baby would respond by calming down slightly. It was as if the bear's presence had some kind of healing effect on the child. "This is extraordinary," whispered Dr. James Chen, a veterinarian who had been called in to assess the bears. "I've studied animal behavior for 20 years, and I've never seen wild bears act like this. They're showing protective behavior typically reserved for their own offspring." The security team was keeping people at a distance, but the bears made no aggressive moves. They simply stood watch, their attention focused entirely on the sick baby being wheeled into the hospital. "Can we allow the bears to stay nearby?" Maya asked Dr. Rodriguez. "I know it sounds crazy, but Arya seems to respond to them." "It goes against every protocol we have," Dr. Rodriguez replied. "But if these animals are somehow helping your daughter, I'm willing to consider it." As they moved toward the hospital entrance, something unexpected happened. The mother bear began to follow them, walking slowly and deliberately behind the medical team. Hospital security moved to block her path, but Dr. Chen held up his hand. "Wait," he said. "Let's see what she does." The bear approached the hospital doors, which were automatic and slid open as she got close. She paused at the threshold, as if she understood that this was a human space where she didn't belong. Then she looked directly at Maya with those intelligent golden eyes and made a sound that was unmistakably a question. "She's asking permission," Maya breathed. "She wants to know if she can come in." The situation was unprecedented. Hospital administrators were making frantic phone calls, trying to figure out what to do. But Maya could see that Arya's condition was continuing to deteriorate, and she was desperate to try anything that might help. "Please," Maya said to Dr. Rodriguez, "let her come with us. I don't understand what's happening, but she's helping somehow." Dr. Rodriguez looked at the bear, then at the sick baby, then back at the bear. Her medical training told her this was insane, but her intuition as a healer told her something else entirely. "Clear the hallway," she ordered. "We're going to try something that's never been done before." The hospital staff scrambled to move patients and visitors out of the way as the most unusual medical procession in the hospital's history made its way toward the pediatric intensive care unit. Maya and David walked beside Arya's gurney, while the mother bear followed a few feet behind them. Her cubs waited outside, pacing anxiously near the hospital entrance. Nurses and doctors lined the hallways, watching in amazement as the massive bear padded quietly through the hospital corridors. She moved with incredible care, as if she understood that this was a place of healing where gentle behavior was required. "Her name is Luna," David said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. "What?" Maya asked. "The bear. Her name is Luna. I don't know how I know that, but I do. She told me somehow." Dr. Chen looked fascinated. "Animals do have ways of communicating that we don't fully understand. If you're feeling a connection with her, it might be real." They reached the pediatric ICU, where specialized equipment was waiting to treat Aria's condition. The room was filled with monitors, machines, and medical devices that would help determine exactly what was wrong with the baby. Luna stopped at the doorway of the ICU room. She was too large to fit inside comfortably, but she positioned herself so that she could see through the glass partition. Her eyes never left Aria as the medical team began their work. "Blood pressure is dropping," one of the nurses reported. "Heart rate is becoming irregular." Maya felt her world starting to collapse. They had made it to the hospital, but what if it was too late? What if all of this had been for nothing? Luna must have sensed Maya's despair, because she pressed her massive head against the glass partition and made a low, rumbling sound that seemed to vibrate through the entire room. To everyone's amazement, Aria's vital signs immediately stabilized. "That's impossible," whispered the nurse monitoring the machines. "Her heart rate just normalized." Dr. Rodriguez was taking blood samples to test for various infections, but she kept glancing at Luna with a mixture of scientific curiosity and pure wonder. "There has to be an explanation for this," she murmured. "Maybe there is," said Dr. Chen quietly. "I've been thinking about this situation, and I have a theory. What if this bear had contact with your family before? What if there's a history between you that you're not aware of?" Maya shook her head. "We've only lived in the mountains for 2 years. We would remember meeting a bear." "Not necessarily, Doctor," Chen continued. "Bears have incredible memories, and they can recognize scents and sounds across many years. If this bear encountered you or your family in a situation where you helped her, she might remember that kindness." David suddenly grabbed Maya's arm. "The cabin," he said urgently. "Before we moved into our current place, we rented that smaller cabin about 5 miles north. Remember our first month there?" Maya's eyes widened as the memory came flooding back. "The injured bear," she whispered. "What injured bear?" Dr. Rodriguez asked. "It was 2 years ago," Maya said, her voice growing stronger as she remembered. "We found a bear caught in an old hunting trap near our first cabin. She was hurt badly, bleeding from her leg. David called the wildlife service, but they said it would be hours before they could get there. So we stayed with her," David continued. "We brought her water and food. Maya even sang to her to keep her calm while we waited for help. The bear was in labor, and she gave birth to 2 cubs while we were there." Dr. Chen's eyes lit up with understanding. "2 cubs?" Maya looked through the glass partition at Luna, and suddenly everything made sense. "It's her. Luna is the bear we helped 2 years ago. And those cubs outside, they're the babies she delivered that night." Luna seemed to understand that Maya had remembered her. She placed her massive paw against the glass and made that same soft, grateful sound she had made in the forest all those months ago. "She's repaying a debt," Dr. Rodriguez said quietly. "She's trying to help your baby because you helped her when she was in trouble." The room fell silent as everyone processed this incredible revelation. Here was a wild animal who had traveled miles through a dangerous storm to help the humans who had once shown her kindness. It was a story that challenged everything they thought they knew about the boundaries between species, but the most amazing part was still to come. As Dr. Rodriguez prepared to administer antibiotics to Aria, Luna began making a rhythmic sound that was almost like singing. It was a deep, resonant hum that seemed to fill the entire room with a sense of peace and healing. Aria's fever began to break for the first time in hours. Her breathing became steadier, and color started to return to her tiny cheeks. The monitors showed steady improvement in all her vital signs. "This is medically impossible," Dr. Rodriguez said, but she was smiling. "But I'm not going to question a miracle when I see one." Maya pressed her hand against the glass partition, matching Luna's paw print on the other side. The connection between them was stronger now, built on mutual understanding and shared motherhood. "Thank you," Maya whispered. "Thank you for coming back for us." Luna's response was a gentle rumble that sounded remarkably like, "You're welcome." Outside in the hospital corridor, a crowd was gathering. Word had spread throughout the hospital about the bear who had ridden in an ambulance to help save a human baby. Nurses, doctors, patients, and visitors were all coming to witness this extraordinary scene. But Luna paid no attention to the crowd. Her focus remained entirely on the small room where human medicine and animal intuition were working together to save a life. She had kept her part of an ancient bargain between species, repaying kindness with kindness across the boundaries of the wild and civilized worlds. Dr. Chen was taking notes furiously, documenting everything he witnessed. "This will change how we think about animal intelligence and emotional capacity," he said. "This bear is showing levels of empathy and memory that we never thought possible." As Arya's condition continued to improve, Maya realized that this night had taught her something profound about the connections that exist in the world. Sometimes help comes from the most unexpected places, and sometimes the wild heart remembers acts of kindness long after humans have forgotten them. Luna settled down in the hallway outside the ICU, clearly intending to keep watch throughout the night. Her cubs had somehow found their way into the hospital and were curled up beside their mother, creating a furry guardian unit outside Arya's room. The hospital's staff had given up trying to enforce normal regulations. This was a night when the impossible was happening, and everyone could feel that they were witnessing something that would be remembered and told for generations to come. As dawn broke over the hospital, casting golden light through the corridor windows, Maya noticed something that made her heart skip a beat. Luna was restless, shifting her position repeatedly and making low sounds that seemed different from her earlier comforting rumbles. These sounds were urgent, almost worried. "Something's wrong," Maya said to David, who had fallen asleep in a chair beside Arya's bed. "Luna's acting strange." Dr. Rodriguez, who had stayed through the night to monitor both her patient and the unprecedented situation, looked up from Arya's chart. The baby's fever had broken completely, and her breathing was normal for the first time in 24 hours. By all medical standards, Arya was recovering beautifully. "Maybe Luna knows her job is done," Dr. Rodriguez suggested. "Animals often have instincts about when healing is complete." But Maya shook her head. "No, this is different. She's trying to tell us something." Luna suddenly stood up, her massive frame filling the corridor. She looked directly at Maya through the glass partition and made a series of sounds that were clearly meant as communication. Her cubs also rose, their ears perked forward in alertness. Dr. Chen, who had been dozing in a nearby chair, was immediately awake and taking notes. "She's definitely trying to communicate something specific. Look at her body language. She's not relaxed anymore." Luna began walking toward the elevator, then stopped and looked back at Maya. When Maya didn't follow, Luna returned and repeated the action. It was clear she wanted Maya to come with her. "She wants me to go somewhere," Maya said, standing up uncertainly. "Absolutely not," David said firmly. "I'm not letting you go anywhere with a wild bear, no matter how friendly she's been." But Luna seemed to understand the concern. She approached the glass partition again and placed her paw against it, looking directly into Maya's eyes. Then she did something that stunned everyone in the room. She tilted her head back and let out a sound that was unmistakably a howl of distress. "That's not a bear sound," Dr. Chen said, his voice filled with confusion. "That sounded almost like a wolf," Maya finished. "That sounded like a wolf howl." Luna's cubs immediately responded with their own calls. and the sound that echoed through the hospital corridors was definitely not typical bear communication. It was a wild, haunting sound that spoke of emergency and desperate need. "There's something else going on," Maya said, her mother's instincts kicking in. "She's not just concerned about Arya anymore. There's something else wrong." Dr. Rodriguez made a quick decision. "Arya is stable now. Her temperature is normal, and all her vital signs are strong. If you want to see what Luna is trying to tell you, you have my medical clearance." David looked torn between his protective instincts and his curiosity about what was happening. "If we go together," he said finally. "And we take security with us." Luna seemed to understand their agreement. She led them toward the elevator, her cubs following close behind. The hospital security team, along with Dr. Chen and 2 wildlife officers who had arrived during the night, formed a protective escort around Maya and David. As they rode the elevator to the ground floor, Luna kept making those urgent sounds. Her entire demeanor had changed from protective guardian to desperate messenger. Something was happening that required immediate attention. They exited the hospital into the early morning light, and Luna immediately began leading them toward the parking area. But she didn't stop there. She continued toward the edge of the hospital property, where the manicured lawn gave way to wild forest. "She's taking us back toward the mountains," David observed. "But why?" Maya asked. "What could be so urgent that she'd leave Arya when she's been watching over her all night?" Their answer came when they reached the tree line. There, lying in a small clearing, was another bear. This one was smaller than Luna, younger, and clearly in distress. The bear was on her side, breathing heavily, and Maya could see that her fur was matted with blood. "Oh my God," Maya whispered. "There's another injured bear." Luna approached the younger bear and nuzzled her gently, making soft, comforting sounds. The injured bear lifted her head weakly and made a sound that was heartbreakingly similar to a human cry for help. Dr. Chen immediately knelt beside the injured animal, keeping a safe distance while assessing her condition. "She's been shot," he said grimly, "probably by a poacher. The wound is in her shoulder, and she's lost a lot of blood." "Is she one of Luna's cubs?" David asked. "No," Dr. Chen replied, examining the bear more closely. "This is a different family entirely, but Luna is treating her like her own offspring." Maya felt tears welling up in her eyes. Here was Luna, who had spent the entire night watching over a human baby, now trying to save another bear who was in desperate need of help. The parallels to their own situation were overwhelming. "She brought us here because she knew we would help," Maya said softly. "Just like we helped her 2 years ago." Luna looked at Maya with those intelligent golden eyes and made a sound that was clearly a plea. She was asking them to save this young bear's life, just as they had once saved her own. "We need to get her to the veterinary hospital," Dr. Chen said. "But moving a wounded bear is extremely dangerous, even with tranquilizers." "What if we don't tranquilize her?" Maya suggested. "What if Luna helps us? She seems to be able to communicate with other bears." Dr. Chen looked skeptical, but he had already seen so many impossible things in the past 12 hours that he was willing to consider any option. It's never been done before, but then again, nothing about this situation has been done before. Luna seemed to understand what they were discussing. She positioned herself beside the injured bear and began making the same rhythmic humming sound she had used to calm Arya. The wounded bear's breathing immediately became more regular, and she seemed to relax despite her pain. "Call for a large animal transport," Dr. Chen instructed one of the wildlife officers. "We're going to attempt the first cooperative bear rescue in medical history." As they waited for the transport vehicle, Maya knelt down a safe distance from the injured bear. Luna watched her carefully. ready to intervene if necessary, but she seemed to trust Maya's gentle presence. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Maya whispered to the wounded bear. "What should we call you?" The bear lifted her head and looked directly at Maya, making a soft sound that reminded Maya of wind chimes. Without thinking, Maya said, "Melody. Your name is Melody." Luna made an approving sound, and her cubs moved closer to the injured bear, forming a protective circle around her. It was clear that Luna had adopted Melody as part of her family, and she expected the humans to do the same. The transport vehicle arrived within 30 minutes, driven by Dr. Sarah Kim, a wildlife veterinarian who specialized in large animal rescue. She took one look at the scene and shook her head in amazement. "I got a call about a cooperative bear rescue involving the bears from the hospital incident," she said. "I thought someone was playing a prank on me." "It's no prank," Dr. Chen assured her. "These bears are showing behavior that's completely unprecedented. They're actively seeking human help and cooperation." Dr. Kim began preparing sedatives for Melody, but Luna immediately became agitated, positioning herself between the veterinarian and the injured bear. She made a series of sounds that were clearly objections to the idea of drugging Melody. "She doesn't want us to sedate her," Maya observed. "She thinks we can move Melody without drugs." "That's impossible," Dr. Kim said. "A conscious bear, especially an injured one, could seriously hurt someone during transport." But Luna had other ideas. She began that rhythmic humming again, and Melody responded by slowly, carefully getting to her feet. The injured bear was weak and unsteady, but she was conscious and mobile. Luna positioned herself on one side of Melody, providing support, and then looked expectantly at the humans. The message was clear. She wanted them to help support Melody from the other side. "This is either the most brilliant thing I've ever seen or the most dangerous," Dr. Kim muttered. But she moved slowly toward Melody, keeping her hands visible and speaking in soft, reassuring tones. To everyone's amazement, Melody allowed the human veterinarian to examine her wound and help support her weight. Luna continued her calming humming, and the injured bear remained docile throughout the process. Together, the humans and bears managed to get Melody into the transport vehicle. Luna immediately climbed in beside her, continuing to provide comfort and reassurance. Her cubs wanted to follow, but Luna made a sharp sound that clearly meant, "Stay here with the humans." "She's trusting us to take care of her cubs while she goes with Melody," Maya realized. "She's dividing her family to make sure everyone is protected." As the transport vehicle drove away toward the veterinary hospital, Maya found herself standing in the forest clearing with David, Dr. Chen, and two young bears who were looking at her expectantly. Luna had essentially left her children in Maya's care, showing a level of trust that was almost incomprehensible. "What do we do now?" David asked. One of Luna's cubs approached Maya carefully and nuzzled her hand, just as Luna had done. The other cub did the same with David. It was clear that these young bears had been taught to trust the humans who had once helped their mother. "I guess we wait," Maya said, gently stroking the soft fur of the cub beside her. "We wait and hope that Luna can help save Melody, just like she helped save Aria." Dr. Chen was frantically taking notes, documenting every aspect of this unprecedented interaction. "This is going to revolutionize everything we think we know about animal behavior and interspecies cooperation," he said. "These bears are showing cognitive abilities and emotional intelligence that we never thought possible." Back at the hospital, Aria was sleeping peacefully in her crib, completely recovered from her illness. Nurses were checking on her regularly, but it was clear that the crisis had passed. The baby, who had been near death just hours earlier, was now healthy and strong. Maya couldn't help but think about the connections that had led to this moment. A sick baby had brought them into contact with a bear family who remembered their kindness. That encounter had led to the discovery of another bear in need of help. It was as if the universe was weaving together a story of compassion that crossed species lines. "Do you think Melody will be okay?" David asked, watching as Luna's cubs explored the forest clearing under their watchful supervision. "I think if anyone can help her, it's Luna," Maya replied. "She's already proven that she understands things we never thought animals could understand." As they made their way back to the hospital with their temporary bear companions, Maya realized that this experience had changed her understanding of the world in fundamental ways. The barriers between humans and animals weren't as solid as she had always believed. Kindness could be remembered and repaid across species lines, and sometimes the wild heart held more wisdom about healing and compassion than all the medical textbooks in the world. The cubs stayed close to Maya and David as they walked, occasionally making soft sounds that seemed like conversation. It was as if they were telling the humans about their mother, about their family, about the connections that bound them all together in ways that went beyond words or understanding. When they reached the hospital, the cubs positioned themselves outside Arya's window, taking up the same protective stance their mother had maintained throughout the night. They were keeping watch, fulfilling the duty Luna had assigned to them while she was away, helping another creature in need. Maya looked through the window at her sleeping daughter, then down at the two young bears who had appointed themselves as guardians. The sight filled her with a sense of wonder and gratitude that she knew would stay with her for the rest of her life. "Thank you," she whispered to the cubs. "Thank you for watching over our family." One of the cubs looked up at her and made a soft sound that sounded remarkably like, "You're welcome." And in that moment, Maya understood that she had become part of something larger than herself. A family that transcended species, united by acts of kindness, and bound together by the unbreakable bonds of compassion. 3 hours passed before Maya's phone rang. It was Dr. Kim calling from the veterinary hospital with an update on Melody's condition. Maya answered quickly, her heart pounding with anxiety about what she might hear. "The surgery was successful," Dr. Kim said, her voice filled with amazement. "But Maya, you're not going to believe what we discovered during the operation." "What do you mean?" Maya asked, stepping away from the cubs so she could hear better. "The bullet we removed from Melody wasn't from a hunting rifle, it was from a tranquilizer dart, but it had been modified with a metal tip that caused serious damage. Someone was trying to capture her alive, not kill her." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. Capture her? Why would someone want to capture a wild bear? "That's what we're trying to figure out," Dr. Kim continued. "But there's something else. Melody is pregnant, Maya. She's going to have cubs in about 2 months." The revelation hit Maya like a physical blow. Someone had been trying to capture a pregnant bear, and their modified tranquilizer had nearly killed her instead. The implications were terrifying. "Where's Luna now?" Maya asked. "That's the other strange thing. Luna won't leave Melody's side, but she's acting agitated again. She keeps looking toward the door and making those urgent sounds. It's like she knows there's still danger out there." Maya looked down at Luna's cubs, who had suddenly become restless as well. They were pacing near the hospital entrance, their ears perked forward in alertness. Something was making them nervous. "Dr. Kim, I think you need to increase security at the veterinary hospital," Maya said urgently. If someone was trying to capture Melody, they might try again. "Already on it," Dr. Kim replied. "But Maya, there's something else you should know. We found a tracking device embedded in Melody's fur. Someone has been monitoring her movements." Maya's blood ran cold. If Melody had been tracked to this location, Then whoever was after her would know exactly where to find her, and they would also know about Luna and her cubs. "David!" Maya called out urgently. "We need to talk to hospital security right away." David hurried over, leaving Dr. Chen to monitor the cubs. "What's wrong?" Maya quickly explained what Dr. Kim had told her about the tracking device and the modified tranquilizer dart. David's expression grew grim as he understood the implications. "Someone is illegally hunting bears," he said, "and now they know exactly where our family is." As if on cue, Luna's cubs suddenly let out warning calls that echoed through the hospital corridors. Their sounds were sharp and urgent, clearly signaling danger. Through the hospital windows, Maya could see a large black SUV pulling into the parking lot. "That's not a normal hospital visitor," David observed, noting the tinted windows and the way the vehicle was parked away from the main entrance. Dr. Chen approached them quickly. "The cubs are acting like they sense a threat. Their body language has completely changed in the past few minutes." Maya watched as two men in camouflage clothing got out of the SUV. They were carrying what looked like large bags and equipment, and they were scanning the hospital building as if they were looking for something specific. "Call security," Maya said urgently, "and call the police. I think the people who hurt Melody are here." David was already on his phone, but Maya could see that the men from the SUV were moving toward the hospital entrance. They walked with the confidence of people who knew exactly what they were looking for. Luna's cubs positioned themselves protectively in front of Maya and David, their hackles raised and their eyes fixed on the approaching men. These young bears might not be fully grown, but they were clearly prepared to defend their adopted human family. "Maya Chen?" one of the men called out as he entered the hospital lobby. He was tall and heavily built, with cold eyes that made Maya's skin crawl. "I'm Agent Martinez with Wildlife Services. I understand you've been harboring dangerous wild animals on hospital property." Maya knew immediately that this man was lying. Real wildlife officers didn't dress like military operatives, and they didn't carry the kind of equipment she could see bulging under his jacket. "I'm sorry, but I don't know what you're talking about," Maya replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "Don't play games with me," the man said, his voice becoming threatening. "We know you've been in contact with a specific bear family. We need you to help us locate them immediately." David stepped forward, placing himself between Maya and the fake agent. "Show us your identification and a warrant, or leave this hospital immediately." The second man, shorter but equally intimidating, moved to flank them. "We don't need warrants for dangerous wildlife situations," he said. "These bears have been involved in illegal activities, and they need to be captured for public safety." Luna's cubs were now making low, rumbling sounds that clearly indicated they were preparing to attack if necessary. Hospital security guards were approaching, but Maya could see they were outnumbered and outgunned. "What illegal activities?" Dr. Chen asked, stepping forward with his credentials visible. "I'm a licensed veterinarian, and I've been studying these bears. They've shown no aggressive behavior whatsoever." "Dr. Chen, is it?" Agent Martinez said with a cold smile. "Your little research project is interfering with a federal investigation. These bears have been stealing from campsites and threatening hikers throughout the region." Maya knew this was a complete lie. Luna and her cubs had been nothing but protective and gentle. These men were after the bears for some other reason, and she was determined to find out what it was. "If this is a federal investigation, then you'll have proper documentation," David said firmly. "Until you can provide that, these bears are under the protection of this hospital and the local authorities." Agent Martinez's expression turned ugly. "You people don't understand the situation you're in. These animals are valuable, and we're going to get them one way or another." The word valuable sent a chill through Maya. This wasn't about public safety at all. These men were involved in some kind of illegal wildlife trade, and they saw Luna's family as commodities to be captured and sold. "Security is on the way," one of the hospital guards announced loudly. "I suggest you gentlemen leave the premises immediately." But Agent Martinez reached into his jacket and pulled out what looked like a high-tech tranquilizer gun. "Nobody's leaving until we get those bears." Luna's cubs immediately sprang into action. They didn't attack the men directly, but they positioned themselves to block any escape routes while making loud, threatening sounds that echoed through the hospital corridors. Maya realized that these young bears were implementing a strategy their mother had taught them. They were calling for backup while preventing their threats from escaping. "You made a mistake coming here," Maya said, her fear transforming into anger. "Luna isn't just any bear. She's been protecting our family, and we're going to protect hers." As if summoned by her words, Maya heard a sound that made her heart soar with relief. It was the distinctive rumble of Luna's voice coming from the hospital entrance. But she wasn't alone. Through the glass doors, Maya could see Luna approaching with Melody beside her. The injured bear was moving slowly but steadily, and both bears looked determined and focused. Behind them came Dr. Kim and several veterinary assistants, along with what appeared to be real federal wildlife officers. Agent Martinez saw the approaching group and cursed under his breath. "This isn't over," he said to Maya. "Those bears are worth a fortune, and there are people who will pay any price to get them." "Actually, it is over," said a new voice from behind them. Maya turned to see a woman in a crisp uniform approaching with a badge that clearly identified her as a real federal agent. "Agent Sarah Foster, Fish and Wildlife Service. You are under arrest for conspiracy to traffic in endangered species." It turned out that Agent Martinez and his partner were part of an international ring that captured and sold rare animals to private collectors. Luna's family had been targeted because of their unusual intelligence and trainability, traits that made them extremely valuable in the illegal exotic pet trade. "How did you know to come here?" Maya asked Agent Foster as the fake agents were led away in handcuffs. "Doctor, Kim called us when she discovered the tracking device," Agent Foster explained. "We've been tracking this trafficking ring for months. The device led us right to them." Luna approached Maya and gently nuzzled her hand, making the soft, grateful sounds that had become so familiar. Melody stood nearby, clearly still weak from her surgery but determined to show her appreciation for the humans who had saved her life. "The cubs called their mother somehow," Dr. Chen observed in amazement. "They sensed danger and sent a signal that brought Luna back here." Maya knelt down beside Luna's cubs, who immediately moved closer for comfort and reassurance. "You were so brave," she whispered to them. "You protected us, just like your mother taught you." Agent Foster was taking detailed statements from everyone involved, documenting the unprecedented cooperation between humans and bears that had led to the capture of the trafficking ring. "This case is going to change federal policy on wildlife interaction," she told Maya. "What you've experienced with this bear family proves that we need to reconsider our understanding of animal intelligence and emotional capacity." As the excitement died down, Maya found herself sitting in the hospital corridor with Luna's entire family gathered around her. Arya was sleeping peacefully in her room, completely recovered from her illness. Melody was resting comfortably, her pregnancy now being monitored by veterinary specialists. Luna and her cubs were finally relaxed, the immediate threat to their family eliminated. "What happens now?" David asked Agent Foster. "Normally, we would relocate the bears to a protected wilderness area far from human contact," Agent Foster replied. "But this situation is anything but normal. These bears have formed bonds with your family that go beyond anything we've seen before." Luna seemed to understand they were discussing her family's future. She looked directly at Maya and made a questioning sound, as if asking what would happen to the relationships they had built. "There's a wildlife preserve about 50 miles from here," Agent Foster continued. "It's a protected area where the bears could live naturally, but it's also close enough that supervised visits might be possible. Would that work for everyone involved?" Maya looked at Luna, and somehow she knew that the bear understood every word of the conversation. Luna made a sound that was clearly agreement, then nuzzled each of her cubs as if explaining the situation to them. "I think they're saying yes," Maya said with a smile. "But I also think they're saying, this isn't goodbye." Dr. Chen was already making plans to establish a research station at the wildlife preserve, where he could study the ongoing relationships between the bear family and the humans who had become part of their extended pack. "This is just the beginning," he said excitedly. "We're going to learn so much about communication and cooperation between species." As the sun set over the hospital, Maya stood at Aria's window with Luna beside her. Both mothers looked down at the sleeping baby, and Maya felt a profound sense of connection that transcended species boundaries. "Thank you for saving her," Maya whispered to Luna. "Thank you for showing us that love and kindness can cross any barrier." Luna's response was a gentle rumble that somehow conveyed everything she couldn't say in words. Love, gratitude, protection, family, all of it was there in that simple sound. The trafficking ring had been stopped, Melody and her unborn cubs were safe, and Aria was healthy and strong. But most importantly, Maya had learned that the world was full of connections she had never imagined possible. Kindness given freely could be returned in the most unexpected ways, and family could be defined by love rather than species. As they prepared to leave the hospital, Maya realized that this experience had changed her family forever. They had become part of something larger, a community that included both human and bear members, all bound together by shared experiences of protection, healing, and love. Luna's cubs took their positions as escorts, walking alongside Maya and David as they carried Aria to their car. It was clear that these young bears still considered themselves guardians of the human family that had become so important to their own survival. "Will we see them again soon?" Maya asked Agent Foster. "Sooner than you think," Agent Foster replied with a smile. "I have a feeling this bear family isn't going to let you disappear from their lives that easily." As they drove away from the hospital, Maya could see Luna and her family in the rearview mirror, watching until the car was out of sight. But she knew this wasn't the end of their story together. It was just the beginning of a new chapter in a relationship that had already proven that love and loyalty could overcome any obstacle, no matter how impossible it might seem. 6 months later, Maya stood at the edge of the wildlife preserve with Aria in her arms. Her daughter was now 14 months old, healthy and vibrant, with curious eyes that seemed to search the forest for familiar faces. David was beside her, carrying a picnic basket filled with fresh fish and honey, gifts for their extended family. "There they are," David said softly, pointing toward a clearing where 3 adult bears and 2 tiny cubs were playing in the afternoon sunlight. Luna approached them first, moving with the same gentle confidence she had shown that night at the hospital. But now there was something new in her demeanor, a deep contentment that spoke of a family complete and safe. Behind her came Melody, fully recovered and glowing with the pride of new motherhood. Her cubs, now 3 months old, tumbled over each other in their eagerness to explore the world. Aria squealed with delight when she saw Luna, reaching out her tiny hands toward the massive bear who had once saved her life. Luna carefully nuzzled the baby's fingers, her touch so gentle that it seemed impossible for such a powerful creature to show such tenderness. "She remembers you," Maya whispered to Luna. "She knows you're the one who watched over her." Luna's cubs, now grown into impressive young bears, greeted Maya and David like beloved relatives returning home. They had learned to balance their wild nature with their affection for the humans who had become part of their pack. Dr. Chen emerged from his research station nearby, his face beaming with excitement. "You're just in time," he called out. "We've made an incredible discovery." Maya and David followed him to his observation area, where monitors displayed footage from hidden cameras throughout the preserve. "Watch this," Dr. Chen said, playing a video from the previous week. On the screen, they could see Luna teaching Melody's cubs how to fish in the stream. But what made Maya gasp was the way Luna was communicating with them. She was using the same soft humming sounds she had made to comfort Arya at the hospital, and the cubs were responding with perfect understanding. "She's passing on what she learned about healing and communication," Dr. Chen explained. "Luna is teaching the next generation of bears how to connect with humans in crisis situations." "You mean she's training them to help people?" David asked in amazement. "It appears so. We've documented several instances where the bears have approached injured hikers and guided them to safety. They're becoming a sort of wilderness rescue team, all because of what Luna learned during her experience with your family." Maya felt tears welling up in her eyes. The kindness they had shown to one trapped and frightened bear had created a legacy that was spreading throughout the forest. Luna was ensuring that future generations would remember the bond between her family and the humans who had shown them compassion. As if she knew they were talking about her, Luna approached Maya and gently touched her hand with her massive paw. Then she did something that took Maya's breath away. Luna began humming the same lullaby that Maya had sung to her all those months ago when she was trapped and in labor. "She remembers," Maya whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "She remembers the song." Luna's humming was joined by her cubs, and then by Melody and her babies. The entire bear family was singing Maya's lullaby back to her, their voices blending in a harmony that seemed to bridge the gap between species. Arya giggled and clapped her hands, adding her own baby sounds to the chorus. For a moment, human and bear voices united in a song of love, gratitude, and eternal connection. "This is going to change everything," Dr. Chen said quietly. "The research we're doing here will revolutionize how humans interact with wildlife. Luna's family is proving that cooperation and mutual respect can create bonds that benefit both species." As the sun began to set over the preserve, Maya found herself sitting beside the stream with Luna's massive head resting gently in her lap. Arya played nearby under the watchful eyes of the cubs, while David and Melody shared fish by the water's edge. "You know what's amazing?" Maya said to Luna. "That night, when you rode in the ambulance with us, I thought you were saving Arya's life. But now I realize you were saving all of us. You taught us that family isn't defined by species or biology. It's defined by love, loyalty, and the willingness to protect each other no matter what." Luna's response was a contented rumble that seemed to say, "I knew you would understand eventually." Agent Foster appeared on the trail, making her monthly check on the preserve. She had become a regular visitor, documenting the ongoing relationships between the bears and their human family for federal wildlife policy updates. "Any problems this month?" she asked, though her smile suggested she already knew the answer. "Only the problem of too much happiness," Maya replied. "These bears are thriving, and so are we." "The trafficking ring went to trial last week," Agent Foster reported. "They received maximum sentences, and the judge specifically mentioned Luna's family as an example of why wildlife protection laws need to be strengthened. Maya looked around at her extended family, human and bear alike, and felt a profound sense of completion. The nightmare of Aria's illness and the threat from the traffickers seemed like ancient history now. What remained was something beautiful and permanent. A bond between families that had chosen each other across the boundaries of species. As they prepared to leave the preserve, Luna walked with them to the edge of the forest. She touched Maya's hand one final time, then nuzzled Aria's cheek with the same gentle care she had shown that desperate night at the hospital. "Until next week," Maya promised. "We'll be back next week." Luna's eyes conveyed perfect understanding. She would be waiting, just as she had waited that night outside the hospital when Aria was sick. Some bonds, once formed, are never truly broken. Driving home through the mountain roads, Maya reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this point. A mother's love for her sick child had led to the rescue of a bear family. That rescue had created a friendship that saved other lives and changed scientific understanding of animal intelligence. And now, their weekly visits to the preserve had become a source of joy and wonder that enriched all their lives. "Do you think Aria will remember all this when she grows up?" David asked. Maya looked in the rearview mirror at their daughter, who was babbling happily and making sounds that were remarkably similar to Luna's gentle rumbles. "I think she's already learning Luna's language," Maya said with a smile. "I think she'll grow up understanding that love comes in many forms, and that kindness creates connections that can last forever." That night, as Maya tucked Aria into her crib, she sang the same lullaby she had once sung to a trapped and frightened bear. Somewhere in the forest, she knew Luna was humming the same song to her cubs, passing on the melody that had become a bridge between their worlds. The story that had begun with a desperate ambulance ride through a storm had become something far greater than anyone could have imagined. It had become a testament to the power of compassion to transcend any barrier, the ability of love to create family across any boundary, and the truth that sometimes the most extraordinary help comes from the most unexpected places. Maya smiled as she kissed her daughter goodnight, knowing that tomorrow would bring new adventures with their remarkable extended family. After all, when love is the foundation, there are no limits to what becomes possible. And in the forest, under a canopy of stars, a mother bear hummed a human lullaby to her cubs, ensuring that the song of connection between their families would echo through generations to come.